Hey guys, what is up? It's Phoenix here again, and today we are going to be creating the Skyrim text. Now, I was originally going to do the Modern Warfare 3 text, like, do you know, the WM3? But I was searching on YouTube to see if anyone's done it, and one guy's already done it, which looks pretty awesome, and that video's got, I think it was 46,000 views. So if I recreated it, because the way he was doing it was actually really similar to the way I figured out how to do it, and this was before I even looked at his video, so I don't want it to be like, oh, I've copied someone, because I really hate that, to be honest. So I've decided to do the Skyrim text instead. Now, the font that they used, I can't really find it on the internet. Now, my idea, my thoughts are that someone who works for whoever, produced Skyrim, actually created this in their arts department from scratch in Illustrator. So I won't be able to find it. So I've used the font, which is up here. I'm not going to pronounce the name because it's Indian or some sort. It's like named after a temple or something. But that's the font you need to use. It's not exact, but it's similar, so that's good. And we're just going to start off here, and we're going to type in Skyrim in caps. So, Skyrim. Now, we're going to press Ctrl-T, and if you hold Shift, then you will constrain the proportions of your text. If you don't hold Shift, it can basically scale any which way you want. But if you hold Shift, it will scale proportionally, which is what we want. Now, my computer is running a little bit laggy here for some reason. I have no idea. Perhaps it's because of how big the document is, but we'll be sorting that out soon. So you want to just try and position it the best you can, which for us is going to be somewhere along there. Now, a lot of people would just go and try stretch out their text to kind of fit it, but that's the wrong way to do it. You want to select your text tool, and you want to go into your character properties, which is here. And if you hold, you can basically adjust it here. And I think maybe let's try 180. Yeah, 180 looks quite good. So we've changed the spacing on that. So we're actually going to move it down. And I'm going to crop this document now, just to save a lot more room. And I think that should be good there. So I am actually using a Wacom pen, or a Wacom. Some people pronounce it differently, just like everyone pronounces words differently. So when you're actually trying to recreate something, the best way to do it is actually just get that image that you're trying to recreate and analyze it and think how they did it. Now, from me analysing this, I can tell that they've used a Bevel and Emboss, and they've added textures over the Bevel and Emboss, and they've also used some dodge and highlights to bring it out. Now, that's my representation of this image. Could they have done that? Possibly. Could they have not? Possibly. We don't know because we didn't create it. Now, when you are trying to recreate something, you're trying to recreate something exact, then that's fair enough, but sometimes it's always nice to add your own flair onto it and to see if you like it. So we're actually going to get started. So I'm going to double click the layer palette. That's going to pop up. So I want to add a Bevel and Emboss. Now, I'm hoping that you guys have some understanding of Photoshop. If you don't, then this tutorial isn't probably for you, because I don't want to explain every single little detail that I'm doing, because I don't want this to be too long. So the style, we're going to choose inner bevel, and the technique is going to be chiseled hard. Now the depth, we're going to put up to maybe 400. Now with all these settings, depending on your size, is dependent on how much of the effect you use. So that if your text was really small, like let's say 14 pixels, you wouldn't even be able to see any of this detail. But if like ours is like over 300 pixels, we're going to be able to see a lot of this detail. So it's all based on how big your text is. So we're going to go for about 490, nothing specific here. For the size, we want it to be quite big, so there's no point going up to, you know, 185 because it doesn't actually go any higher than that. So we want it just so it's touching, which is about 10 pixels. Yeah, so we'll have 9 pixels. Don't need to mess with the soften because we don't want it soft. And let's see, so the shading is really important when it comes to actually creating decent you know, bevels. So we're actually going to up the shadow and up the highlights. Maybe not too much. The highlights probably fine, quite high. Again, we want to uncheck global light because we want to add our own lighting. Now, from looking at this, I can think that it would the light source is up here, is what I'm trying to say, and it's shining down in a, you know, in a direction that's coming this way, but then on this side it's shining the opposite way. So from what I can guess is that it's going to be about 90 degrees, and that way it's going to kind of shine down. And we want to change the altitude. Now if we just change the altitude here, hopefully we can recreate it. Now, like I said, it's just a lot of trial and error, you know, figuring out what way you want it to look. Now, another important thing is we want to check anti-aliasing, just because we want it to be a lot smoother. Now, here are a lot of different charts that you can use. Now, each chart will give you a different looking effect. Now, you can create your own custom charts. Now, I've never really actually played with these, but they do play quite a big part in actually creating this effect. Now, as you can see here, we've got our highlight down the bottom, which is what we want. We've got our highlight down here, but it's kind of off-putting at the minute. And same with our K. Our K is really blown out at the minute, but it's got the highlights where we want them. So I think we're going to stick with that, but now we just need to actually adjust these settings. So I think if we go to perhaps 65, and we will use the altitude again, the angle, sorry, and we want to change the angle. So I think this is looking a lot better. Now, as you can see, the S is a little bit kind of reversed at the minute. Now, I'm thinking this might be better to do each individual letter separately. That way we could actually get, you know, the lighting correct. Now, but for tutorial purposes, we're just gonna kind of continue here. So I think possibly 95 would do. So let's play around with the opacity here, because we don't want this too high. So let's have the text to about 90. Let's put this to normal. This has no effect whatsoever at the minute, which is kind of a shame. Let's play around with some of these, because we don't, like I said, it's trial and error all the way about how it comes out. And there's no specific numbers here. I couldn't give you a magic number and say this is it. This is the magic number that you use, because that's not the case at all. Yeah, I don't want to go up to 100 because it just won't look right. Let's have about 92. So we've got our general Bevel and Emboss sorted. So we want to click Contour. Now, Contour is basically going to add if you pay attention to the middle of our text, now some of it will get darker, then if you take it away it will get lighter. It's kind of like how the Bevel and Emboss react. And if we go all the way up, then it's really shiny, it doesn't look as crisp. But if we bring it down to, I think, changing, what the hell? That was weird. Changing these again will give you different results. And we just want to find the one that really suits what we're after. And if none of them suit, then I think that the default, or is this one? I think that one looks okay. So let's maybe put it to 40%. And if we turn it off and on, you can see the difference that it makes. Now I'm not necessarily sure that's better. Let's put it back to our default. Yeah, I think the default one is going to look a lot better. So like I'm saying, it's trial and error. We're just making this on the go, really. So always turning things back on and off, you can see what's changing. And that's kind of what we want, because as you can see here, there's always a hard dark edge in the middle, which is what we're after. So stain is also another effect that you can use. Now this is what it does, is it basically stains the top of your Bevel and Emboss with a colour, and you can change the height and the width. Now what we want is, we want a small scale, maybe about 1 pixel. And the reason we want that is because we want to darken up the center of this text. We don't want it too shiny, but we don't want it too dull either. So at the minute, we're kind of getting there. It's okay, so let's add a gradient, because we want our text to be... Why does it keep doing that? I think it's because it's running slow at the minute. So we want to have 3 colours. Not these colours, of course, but these are just to get the positioning right, so we don't have to do it. And we want to choose some greyish. I think we're going to choose that. I'm going to copy that, Control C, click OK, and then click on this colour, double click that, and it loads up. It's just being really slow for some reason. No, come on. There we go. Paste that in, and for the centre we want this to be white. So again, I'm just going to wait for it to load up. No idea why it's so slow. And I'm going to make this not a pure white, because nothing in this world is pure white, even white in pure white. And then we're going to click OK. So now we have our gradient. Now the difference isn't too significant, but we do actually want to dull this down a little bit. We just want some variation within the colours and not just a plain white. As you can see, some areas dull up, and it does actually look really nice. So we want to add a stroke. Now the stroke just wants to be 1 pixel and left alone like that, just because we want the harsh edge that Skyrim seems to have. So we're going to click OK. Now if you want to save the layer style, you just want to go to your Bevel and Emboss, and you want to click, well, you'd have to go to Bevel and Emboss, you can be on any tab, but you want to click New Style, and when it loads, yeah, it's still loading. And then you name your style, so we're going to name it Skyrim, and include layer effects. Include layer blending options. We don't have any, so we don't check that. And then we click OK. So, actually I think it might be lagging because I've got mini bridge open. Let me close this down. I don't know how to close it down actually. I don't think you can close it down once you open it in Photoshop. Or never mind. So our text is looking similar. It's not looking exact at the minute, but this is where the texturing comes in. So I'm going to actually open mini bridge again, and I'm going to open this 18. Now this is just a random image that I got off the internet, and it's nothing fantastic. It's just a random grunge image. I searched on Google grunge texture, and this is one of them that came up. So I actually need to go back to window and go back to this one. So I'm going to paste this in with Control V. Now, did that actually work? There we go. So it's really big and it's really blurry, so we want to scale this down tremendously. And we're going to drag, and we're going to hold shift and drag again and bring it back up so we can see how big it is. So it's getting smaller, which is good, what we want, but we want it even smaller. Now because this image is so big, it's actually ideal to scale it down as much as we need it. So I'm actually going to scale it down a little bit more to around there, and I'm going to bring it over just so it covers the entire Skyrim text, and I'm going to scale it down a little bit more. Make sure I'm holding shift to keep this proportionately, and then I'm going to click enter. So now that we have our image, it looks a little distorted, but it doesn't matter. And we are going to control click on our Skyrim text on the actual icon, and what that's going to do is it's going to make an outline of the actual text. So on here we're going to press Control J. Now that's going to duplicate our selection, so it's just going to leave an outline of the text basically. So now because Skyrim looks more like a silvery bluish kind of grungy text, we're actually going to press Control Shift and U to desaturate this text. Then we're going to hit Control L to bring up the levels, and we're just going to make these a bit lighter, make the darks a little bit darker, and just generally darken and lighten the image the way we feel fit. Now once that's done, this is where the layer blending options come in. Now you just want to start off with going through them and seeing which ones make you feel like this looks like Skyrim. So if I use multiple, it's going to be really too dark on the S and the K and the Y. The other ones aren't too bad, so I'm just going to cycle through them. Now lighten looks okay on the SK, but on the R, I and M it looks a bit too light. So I'm going to keep cycling through them until I find something that I think looks okay. So overlay and soft light are generally your best bets. So I'm actually going to go with soft light because that looks pretty cool actually. I'm going to reduce the opacity to about 80% just because we don't want it too, prominent. I'm actually going to open up my next texture now, which is this rock type surface, and I'm going to close that. I'm going to copy this. Now again, this is another one that I found just searching grunge textures. I went onto a site and it was just there, so I thought why not. Now for some reason it's not copying and pasting, so I've just got to make a new layer then paste it. Now the reason I've got this crack is because if you see on the Skyrim text, it's got a crack running through it, which is quite cool. So I'm actually going to lower the opacity down to 50%, so I know what I'm doing, and I'm going to press Control Shift U again to actually desaturate that image. And I'm just going to move this image up, press Control T, and I'm going to just rotate this image the way I want. Now the S looks good, the K doesn't look too fantastic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate this up, because I want it to look like it's coming down like that. So the angle on this is a lot better. Wait, actually it does actually look really similar. So I'm going to rotate that a little bit. That maybe is a bit too much. And we're going to just have something like I'm going to use my arrow keys just to position it a little bit better. I'm going to use something like that. Now I'm going to up the opacity and I'm going to shift click on the Skyrim text again. Now I'm going to press Ctrl J because we always want to keep our original layer. So as you can see, it's gone over the first 3 letters, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to go down my layer styles again. Now darken looks okay. Multiply, it's made it a bit too dark. So I'm just going to go through them and see which one I find that fits the best. And what's that? That's overlay. So soft light, it leaves the K mark, it leaves it really faint. We want it to be quite dark. So I think that overlay looks a lot better. So we're actually going to take our brush tool and we're just going to lightly let's turn the opacity up, and we're just going to lightly get rid of some areas on this text just to give it a little bit of a lift up. And again, we're going to take the original that we have, and again we're just going to move it over, lower the opacity and press Ctrl T, and we just want to perhaps have something, I was going to do my own then, but let's just keep it in the close to the original as we can. So I think something like that might be okay. So again, Control and click on the Skyrim text layer and Control J that, and then we're just going to up the opacity and turn that one off, and then we're going to set this one to overlay because we know overlay works quite well. So we're actually going to delete some of the parts that we don't want on this layer, which is there, down there, a bit here, and again this is just totally up to you. Make it your own, change it up, entirely up to you. So now as for the overall feel, I think it looks pretty similar. Excuse me. So we want to finish this up now because this tutorial has gone on for quite a long time. I mean, there's different ways of showing you guys how to do this. You know, I could have just told you what numbers to put in, but doing it this way I feel is a lot better, especially for you guys to understand. I mean, this is a process and you can learn this process. You've just got to put in the effort. So I want to delete this little bit here because it does look a bit too light, like so. Okay, so we've got that one, we've got that one, so we don't need that now. I'm going to delete that, and same for that. Now some areas we have some really dark blobby areas, some are quite okay. So I'm actually going to pick up my brush tool. I'm going to go to my brushes and I want to pick just one of these little I don't know what you call them. I guess you can call them dirty brushes. They leave like they've got like a really nice grungy effect, and we want to put on some scattering, and we want to put on, let's see, no, don't, just scattering I think. So we just want to scatter this a little bit and up the count to about 2. Now this is really just playing around with some of the different settings to see if we can find something that looks okay. Now I want to hide that and press Control and click on my text again. So I'm going to make a new layer. Now, of course, it's always ideal to name your layers so you know what's happening. And I'm going to basically brush with black. I'm going to basically go over some areas, like so. Now I'm just tapping with a pen. If you're using a mouse, then you want to change your opacity down a bit. And we just want to go around it with some areas, just making it a little bit uneasy. And I think maybe there. The S looks okay, but let's get a bit here and a bit there. Now I'm going to press Ctrl D to deselect. Now that we've got our grungy bit, which looks okay, let's test out some layer styles. Now we don't want something really in your face, but we do want something that is going to stand out. Now a lot of these don't really look fantastic, so if a layer style doesn't suit your fancy, then just lower the opacity a bit. Maybe 64. And that's looking pretty cool, I must admit. So now we have our text done. The colour is a little bit off. Now, could you have silver type text? Of course you can, but just for the sake of actually trying to make it as close as Skyrim as possible, we're actually going to add what's it called? A layer mode. And I think I've totally just gone like a brain dead. But we're going to adjustment layer. That's it. Oh, it came back eventually. My brain was like fuzzing out. Anyways, we're gonna add a layer, adjustment layer. Oh my god! And we're going to add a curves effect. Now, I'm going to adjust my reds. I'm going to bring them down a bit, and I'm going to adjust my greens, bring them down a bit, and I'm going to adjust my blues. I'm going to up my blues a bit. Now that is basically making it a similar colour to the Skyrim text, but this is affecting everything at the minute. So I want to control and click on my original Skyrim layer, go back up to my layers, and I want to fill this in with black. Now black will basically make it so that nothing affects that area when I add layer styles. So as you can see, that's the original, that's ours. Now our blue is really popping, which could be nice, but we don't want it too, you know, too noticeable. So we're going to really adjust the opacity on it. And I think probably 35 would do it. Now, just one more thing we're going to add is a hue and no, it's going to be, where is it? Color balance. Now again, a color balance is similar to well, it does adjust the colors, but you can adjust the shadows and the highlights. So the shadows are quite blue. We want to adjust them, and the highlights we want to make a little bit cyan, just to pop them out, and I'll add a little bit of blue. And for the mid-tones, we just want to add a little bit of blue and a little bit of cyan. Now once that's done, again, we want to shift click on that, and we want to click back on our mask and paste in, just because we don't want to affect that, we just want to affect ours. Now again, this is really too in your face, so we're going to adjust this down a little bit, maybe to about 25. Now let's have it on and off. Now it's a very, very subtle effect, but all the subtle effects that you do make a difference. So guys, that's really it, to be honest. Now let's go to actual pixels. Let's zoom out to, let's say, there, and I think that the actual outcome is very similar actually. Again, it's not going to be exactly the same just because we didn't create it. Now, even if the artist recreated this, something on it would be different, because it's very hard to actually recreate something over and over and duplicate it exactly how it was. So I think the outcome is really nice, and we'll just go to actual pixels, which I think that is, yep. And I think we did a pretty good job. So thanks for watching this long tutorial, guys. I do really appreciate all your support and all the support to my YouTube channel, which is really important to me. It does mean a lot to me. So guys, thanks very much. Please leave a comment telling me if you like the tutorial. Does it look similar? Did I do a good job? And also post a link to your attempts. I mean, if you're going to attempt this, then please post your attempts. And also leave a comment on anything I can improve on how I basically teach you in tutorials, because this is probably my 5th tutorial that I've ever done, and you know, it's still new to me. I mean, even commentating is new to me. So apart from that, guys, thanks very much for watching. Please thumbs up, rate and share it with your friends. Peace.